Good evening, everyone. And we are sorry for the technical difficulties, but hopefully you can hear me well, and hear everyone else. It's an exciting evening anytime you're talking about safety, anytime you're talking about the issues that seem to plague us, making sure that our children are safe at home, safe at school, safe everywhere that they go, because if our children are not safe, then the DeKalb County School District and other school districts will not be able to educate them properly and do the things that are necessary to take place. So we're hoping that you will be able to stay with us as we talk about safety at home, safety at school. We talk about the fact that all of it starts with you. But notice that when you're pointing that finger, there are three pointing back. So that you includes all of us. It includes us being able to look at what do we need to do. You turn on the news every day. There's violence everywhere we go. There's gun violence, there's domestic violence, family violence. There are things taking place every day. And we're probably shaking our heads and holding our hands on our heads and wondering, what do we need to do? So hopefully tonight in this courageous conversation, a conversation where we come together and we have an opportunity to not only talk about what's going on, talk about the dilemmas and the issues, but have a conversation about what can be done. We have students involved tonight. We have people that are going to be from the district, the superintendent, interim superintendent. We have people that in mental health, all of us coming together for this courageous conversation for District 7. I do represent District 7 on the DeKalb County School Board, and I want to thank the team, Ms. Coward, Marcia Coward and her team, and everyone who's been a part of this. As we get into this courageous conversation, as we look at how can we begin to look at the things that we need to do in order to ensure that our children are safe at home and at school. If you turned on the 6 o'clock news today, it was first plagued with one thing after another. And even before that, the 12 o'clock news is always the same. But we're here to say that we're more than talk. This will be part one of the courageous conversation of safety at home and safety at school. I want to make sure that we recognize Interim Superintendent Dr. Vasan Tinsley. She's here with us tonight and will be a part of this conversation and having the conversation with us. Want to make sure that we recognize her in the meeting. Is Dr. Tinsley still here?
Yes, ma'am, Dr. Morley, I'm here. Thank you.
You're welcome. I also want to make sure that we recognize Dr. Deborah Moore Sanders, and Dr. Moore Sanders will be a part of the conversation as we talk tonight. And we want to make sure that we also recognize Dr. Keisha Towns. She will also be a part of this conversation. We have students that are going to be a part of the conversation. We have principals, we have people in the community, because the you that it starts with is all of us. None of us singularly is great as all of us. Parents are on here. We need the parents. And I think one of the failures of public education and many other educations is the fact that parents are not a part of it. It is a systems approach. It takes all of us to be able to do what we need to do. It is a village approach. So we want to make sure that we have the village a part of this tonight as we look at how can we make sure that safety is abound at school and at home. So I want to be able to invite, if there are any principals, to introduce themselves quickly. Any principals on the call tonight, on the Zoom meeting? Any of our principals from District 7? I don't want everybody running to the mic at the same time and trying to get on. Any principals?
Yes, good evening. This is Dr. Carter, Principal Allgood Elementary. Good evening, everyone.
Thank you. Principal, can you tell us one thing that you're doing in your school to ensure safety?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. At Allgood, we're making sure that all of our students are safe. We're doing our safety walk, making sure that the doors are secured, and just making sure that we're going over all of the safety procedures with our students, our faculty, staff, as well as communicate with our parents, all of our stakeholders. Because we know that safety is just so important these days and times, and we just want to make sure that all of our students and all of our family members, stakeholders, feel that their students will be safe when they come to Allgood. So we're doing a lot of things each and every day, and we're reiterating every morning doing our morning announcements.
Awesome. Thank you. Any other principals?
Thank
Give
you.
you an opportunity to talk about what you're doing to make sure that there's safety in your building. Any other principals? If not, we're going to move forward and we're going to go ahead and make sure that we get the conversation going. Well, the bottom line is that there's always good news. So we heard the good news from our principal at All Good Elementary. And what we're going to talk about, start out, is the parents' role in school safety. And I want to open the dialogue, and we want to make sure that we have Dr. Tinsley, we have Dr. Deborah Moore Sanders, Dr. Towns are here as we talk about the parents' role. You know, oftentimes we have parents, and as I said earlier, many times that are not a part of the conversation. And we cannot educate children if we don't have parents to be a part of the conversation, a part of the educational process. And the role of parents, as we begin to look at this, we begin to talk about it. How do we begin to look at that? We also have Chief Bradley Gober, who is the chief of our police for the DeKalb County School District. He'll also be weighing in on this conversation. What do we need to do? Where are the parents? Where are the parents? Do you all remember the commercial that used to come on at night at 11 o'clock at night? And it would say, parents, do you know where your children are? Why was there a burglary downtown Decatur at 2-something in the morning? And it was young people committing the burglary, committing the crime. Parents, do you know where your children are? Dr. Tinsley, can you come in and help us to understand? What are your thoughts? And either of you can step in, Dr. Towns, Dr. Moore Sanders, Chief Gober, your thoughts about parents, the role that parents play in making sure that their children are safe, not only at home, but when they get to school.
Thank you, Dr. Morley. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you to parents and staff members and students and other community stakeholders that are with us this evening. We know this is a very, very important topic. Yes, Dr. Morley, we know that the schools can't do this alone. We have to have input from the community and our parents. We have to make sure that everybody understands that we all have a role in helping to make sure that we keep our schools, our communities, and our society safe. And I think when we lose sight of that, that's when we have problems. Dr. Morley, you made an interesting statement about an event that happened not too long ago, where there were students involved in an altercation, but it was at 3 o'clock in the morning. And so we have to start to think about that. Why were students out at that time of morning in a situation where they were, where it was easy for them to get into some trouble? So I think that's very important. But I also think that we have to remember that there's so many pieces of this safety discussion. We have to make sure that we hear about things in the media all the time. So, we'll talk about, weapons and, fights and altercations and conflict resolution. But we have to remember the role of anger management. We have to remember the importance of mental health awareness. We have to understand that sometimes, and not just our students, but adults and parents get stressed out. And so what can we do to make sure that parents manage their stress so that they don't take that out on their students? And that's important because we know that our children mimic what they see at home. So we have to make sure that we're working on those coping strategies, those healthy coping strategies that help to also influence what safety looks like in our community and transferable over to our schools. I will open it up. I'll ask Dr. Moore Sanders, Dr. Towns, or any one of the other panelists to share if there's something else they'd like to share.
I'll share, Dr. Tinsley, and thank you, Dr. Morley and Dr. Tinsley. I think one of the things that we have seen, especially as we have been coming out of the pandemic, is that everyone is having difficulty communicating. And so what I mean by that is that we are using more devices, we are using less clear language. And so lots of times our communication strategies are what is driving or what's driving the emotions and driving how we respond. And so a lot of times that is one of the key things that causes the conflicts is somebody says something or a child says something, people take it the wrong way or don't take it in the vein of how it was meant. And then now we have a conflict. And so I think with that, one of the key strategies that we can do around just managing our emotions is just make sure that we are communicating very effectively. Make sure that we are hard on problems and not people, and not take everything out on the person, but look at what it is that we are doing to address the problem in an effective manner.
Anyone else?
Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Morley and Dr. Tinsley. This is Keisha Towns, Director for Student Relations. Thank you so much for hosting this. I do want to say the initial important point to remember is our students need to have the knowledge of the expectations. And so what's very important is that the parents review the code of student conduct with our students. We cannot assume that students know what those appropriate behaviors and expectations and rules are while they are in school, particularly if they are just coming to school as kindergartners or elementary students, or even new to DeKalb County School District. So it is very important that the code of student conduct is reviewed at home. We review that code of conduct with the students in school. We test them on their knowledge of the code of student conduct, and we are there to clarify any misunderstandings. But it's very important that the parents who are speaking a common language with the student put what those rules and expectations are in context within their households, and make sure the students are aware of those expectations. And certainly parents, we would like for you to reinforce those expectations at home as well as in the school. So that's very important. And one other thing is, we certainly want our parents, if there are any issues, any concerns with safety, to know that we are always here for you. And therefore you can call us, you may email us, and we will be glad to assist you if there is a safety issue that we need to address. Thank you.
Well, Dr. Towns, I want to ask you a question because, you know, I hear, and I was actually in a conversation with someone just the other day that talked about, is a parent that talked about telling his student to, if somebody hits them, you hit them back. And, you know, that's something that, you know, if you think about it from growing up, and I think we all have heard that, but how do we shape that and turn it? Because unfortunately, what happens sometimes with issues in the school, and you talk to the student after they've gotten into an altercation, they say, well, my mama said hit them back, or my daddy said hit them back. So how can we start to reshape that? Because the students are doing, as I said, they model what they've been told and what they see. But in every situation, that's just not appropriate. So what are your thoughts there?
That is an excellent question. And so what we do know, Dr. Tinsley, is that there are expectations and behaviors for different situations, different environments. And so what we do want to do is we want to respect the rules and expectations that parents may have at their homes. We don't want to disregard that. We want to make sure we are communicating with the parents that we respect their rules and expectations for their children. However, because they are now in a school setting, that may not be appropriate, and we do have other expectations for the students. And we do not want students to feel as if they cannot, I guess, respect themselves and defend themselves, but we do want the parents to communicate to the students that while we certainly know that the rules and expectations they have in their home are important, and we respect those, but we do have other rules and expectations in the school as well.
I think it comes down to recognizing that there are boundaries and helping children and parents to learn how to choose their battles. That every word or every a statement or every movement doesn't mean that you have to react. It's teaching our children and parents how to not only act upon situations, not be reactive, but be proactive. How can we handle it a lot differently? Because it is looking at, when you talk about safety, it's emotional, psychologically, it's spiritual, it's physical, all that safety come together. It's the totality of the child. But when we look at parents, and I want to say this, is that parents need to know that the DeKalb County School District has a family and community engagement division that does a lot, that we can help you with so many things. If you're frustrated, if you're stressed, rearing children is not an easy task. I had 3, I know. But then it comes down to it, that no matter how old you are, how young you are, that you cannot just be there with your children, and you have to recognize who's the boss in the house. Children they don't own the home. They do need a loan. They don't pay for their own cell phone. And yet it's still, you have to be able to have boundaries to say, this is how far it's going to go. When that child begins to get out of place, or that child is going to go out, set the rules and regulations. Know what's going in that room. How dare you to have something in my room, in my house, because it's not their house yet. And sometimes it may seem as if being a little harsh, and sometimes there can be inappropriate type of discipline, but you have to have consequences. There has to be responsibility, accountability, expectations, having children to have chores, ask questions, having conversation. We talk about relationships, but we have to recognize relationships. The root word is to relate. And if you relate, you're communicating. If there's not effective communication, then we're going to look at other ways of ameliorating and trying to deal with situations. The first thing that we want to do is fight. And we've been also looking at the news and seeing all of the fights that's breaking out, and they're putting it on Instagram, on Facebook, and everywhere. Every time you look, something is going on. Somebody gets hurt, someone gets killed. And the hardest thing for me is seeing that mom, that dad, that grandmother, granddad, uncle, aunt at the funeral on TV saying, that was my baby. That was a good boy. She was a good girl. So we have to begin to look at children really, really want guidance. They want direction. They need it. They also want someone to be able to give them some supervision. That's why they have parents. I think we're the only species that children become adults and they can still be in mom and daddy's house, and they're 50, 60, sometimes 70 years old, and maybe not even working. Because when the bird gets strong enough, the wings get strong enough, the mama kicks them out of the nest. When that kitten or that dog gets strong enough, they have to go out and find their own food, unless a human is taking care of them. So there's a reason that God gave children parents. And we know it's a tough job. You might not know everything, and you might not know what to teach them, but there are resources. And it's actually reaching out and trying to get those resources, that love. And so sometimes we don't know how to love. And love doesn't mean buying children and give them everything they want. My philosophy is, they don't have to have expensive sneakers. They don't have to have expensive jeans. They don't need all this stuff. They don't need anybody else's name on their behind to feel good about themselves. They can wear plain pockets. It's what's in the head, what's in the heart. Are they eating properly? And the school provides meals. So, there's so many different things that we can provide, but safety has to start in the home. And if parents are on here tonight and not clear about whether there's safety there, where are those guns? The governor might have signed a draconian law saying that you don't have to have a permit, but no child should be walking around with a gun. And some parents, you have to make sure that they are safe, but if you have them. So guns are not the problem, it's what's being done with them. And Dr. Tinsley, you talked about anger. There's nothing wrong with being angry. It's how do you manage it?
That's right.
Talk about conflict. We can't live without conflict. I don't believe all conflict can be resolved, but you can learn to manage it. Breathing deeply, stop, walking away. And I think one of the problems we've gotten to, and I have to say this, in our Black community, we're losing Black boys and Black men. I have never seen domestic violence at the heights of that. That we don't all have to, somebody's going to win, somebody's got to lose. That's what they're thinking. It can be a win-win situation. Because the next day after that person is laying in the morgue or somewhere or in the hospital, it makes it very difficult. So I think that we have to recognize when we're looking at parents, we're here to help parents. We're not here to put parents down, demean them, because without parents, we wouldn't have children. I don't care if they're wearing Prada, red bottom, black bottom, whatever color shoes they're wearing. When that parent is there, it's to say that you're important. Your children are important. And whatever we can do to be able to help you. But parents, we're in this together. It is a village concept. It is how we do it. But at some point, you've heard them say, we're going to take back this and take back, you got to take back your homes, take back your children. I raised 3 daughters. And I want to also say to parents, being single parent, I'd rather see you be a single parent with a healthy home than to be with 2 or 3 people in there and it's unhealthy for the children. So being a single parent doesn't mean that you're doing a bad job. Being a single parent means that you're doing the best you can and that you're reaching out. It has models, and as Dr. Tinsley said, you have to be the role model. Children don't necessarily do what you tell them, they do what they see. And it's having conversations with your children and listening. They do have something to say. And so it's important that we do that and recognizing that we're here for the emotional, the psychological, the physical, and the spiritual safety. But we can't reach into the homes. We do need to. When I was a counselor in New York, I said we'd go to the homes and we all work together. So now we've gotten to what laws. Well, then we need to go vote and make sure we put the people in place so we can change some of these laws so we can save our children. Dr. Tinsley, anything else you want to say? Chief Goldberg, anyone else wants to say something?
I just wanted to add just a quick point to that, Dr. Morley, and I think that everything that we've said, I think is spot on. One of the things that I would like to highlight, just in looking at some of the disciplinary cases that we, see coming through the district from time to time, a lot of influence that we're seeing with students also is in the media, not just social media, but media, the violent video games. Our students are desensitized, very honestly, and, they don't see sometimes that the violent acts or the conflicts that they're having are not healthy. And so I would just encourage parents to monitor, the things that your students are exposed to, the video games. We know that in some cases, the video games have been great babysitters. But while they are babysitters and the students are, operating those handheld devices better than probably most of us on this panel, what's happening is they're being exposed to this and it's going into their brain and they're thinking about it and they're constantly, remembering, flashing back to what they've seen on those screens. So I would just encourage, as just another thing to think about, for parents and the community, how can we limit some of that interaction that our students have with media?
Yeah.
Or the more negative media.
Yeah, very important, very important. Anyone else want to contribute at this point?
Dr. Morley, if I may add, Dr. Tinsley made a really good point about what is happening with our children in media. And I think to our parents, especially to our young children, lots of times there is such a level of stimulation that is happening in their brains when they are dealing with these images and things that they are seeing. And then our children sometimes don't know that these images are not real. And so when our kids start to engage in some things that has brought them a heightened sense, they move from the game to doing things real and not always knowing that the consequences behind the real actions are very different from the actions in the video game. And so I know when I'm working with parents, that's one of the things that we say is, Dr. Tinsley made a very good point. You have to monitor the activity, not just the activity, but the amount of time that the child is on the device. And parents, I would also encourage, if there are games, talk to your children about what is going on so that you can get a sense of, oh no, this baby here, let me take this away, because they are not understanding the real implications behind what is going on.
Right. And I think one of the other things is always say that, we have to help our children to have dreams, because if they don't have a dream, they're going to have a nightmare. And oftentimes when you see anger and you see violence, it's basically living that nightmare. And Dr. Moore Sanders, you made an excellent point. They see things out and everybody wants to be rich. But one of the things that with our children, many of them are straddling the fence between a real society and what's unreal. And so they, nothing wrong with rappers, nothing wrong with any of that, nothing wrong with athletes. But there are many people also who use their mind to be able to do things and say things. How do we help them to understand their culture? There's a divided culture in the African-American community. How do we help them to be able to know their history? Yeah, the governor said one thing, but you can do whatever you need to do at home to teach your children. Because a person who doesn't have a past can't live in the present, and their future is going to be a failure. And we also give them permission to fail. The problem is not failing, faltering, but it's not getting back up. How do you teach them that they have a culture, that they're somebody, their history, who they are, their skin, Black, brown, indigenous, whomever? When we have immigrants in the Clarkson community, the immigrants and the refugees, they need to know about their homeland, but they also need to know about the journey and how we got to where we are. The importance that they are somebody. Every day I tell my grandchildren, you know, they're prince and princess on their way to becoming kings and queens. And so it should go through that, but they still are disciplined. They still have all of that going. And so how do you actually infuse into their mind and have that going on every day? And you have to be careful, parents and all adults. What we hear, what we see, I'm very careful. I don't read everything on Facebook. Someone sent me a Facebook post by someone who should have known better. And I said, you know, thank you, but I'm really not interested. What you hear, because it infiltrates your mindset. You have to be careful what you taste in your mouth. All of those things that come and be able to impact your mental and psychological state, your emotional state, your spiritual state. And so we have to make sure the school can only do so much. And the other thing, parents, the schools and the community, the schools belong to you all. If you, and we're going to talk about that, saying something, seeing something, but you have to be a part. Come out to the parent meetings, but don't come out there with your revolver in your glove compartment. Come out to the parent meeting, but don't come out there cussing and fussing. And the educators have to respect parents coming out and making sure. And the educators of schools, we want to make sure there are policies, processes, procedures, protocols without the politics. So we have to make sure that we're doing that. What are we doing? And we're doing some things, and I'll give Dr. Tinsley a minute to be able to talk about some of the things that we're looking at in our schools to make sure that children are safe. And we have to have a plan. We can't just do things without having a written plan of what's the safety for the children. And then we have to have consequences. Dr. Towns can talk to you about it. You know, understanding the student handbook. Ask your child what's going on. What happened at school? Don't let them just say, oh, nothing. Something had to happen. What are you thinking about? Oh, nothing. No one walks around not thinking because they're human. They're breathing. It has to be a joint effort. We have to be lock, stock, and barrel coming together. And parents, I want you to take a deep breath and also think about it. Before you go out to the school, ask some questions. And if you're not getting what you need, give that principal and that teacher a chance to work it out. Anger never solves anything. Anger should be building blocks. Okay? They should be stepping stones, that anger, that emotion as you calm down, to finding a way to fix the situation and sometimes to manage it, but it should not be destruction. And if you act out of anger while you're angry, you're going to be sorry tonight, tomorrow, and thereafter, because you can't take back. And it has to be mutual respect between the school and the parents and the school. And if you teach your children to be respectful at home, they'll go to school, and as Dr. Tinsley said, you know, when it comes up, well, my mama told me to fight. No, that's not always the way to do it. Or to hit them back. There's a counselor in that school that child can go to. There's an adult. And if the child comes home and they're still having a problem, parents need to get involved. But that mutual respect, that positive regard, unconditional positive regard for the fact that we're human beings, and effective communication. How do we communicate? With our words, without pistols, without using our fists, and without using anything that's going to actually jeopardize the health, safety, and welfare of our children and our educators. We have to make sure our educators, our teachers, and everybody is safe too. Everybody needs to have some safety. And we shouldn't have to be next week looking at Johnny in a casket, or Mary who's has been physically to the point where she is paralyzed in a hospital and never coming back, or mom or dad who are gone because of the fact that someone was so violent and they didn't care enough to see each other as human beings. Dr. Tinsley?
Thank you, Dr. Morley. I'm going to give a few things, but I saw that we had one of our students who asked if the students were allowed to chime in. So Dr. Morley, if I might ask one or two of the students to just share a little bit of their thought on what we've talked about, if that's okay.
Yes, most certainly.
Okay. I think Mark was asking. Mark?
Hello. Well, I'm Mark Gunter. I am a student at Reading High School. And first, I want to say, Dr. Morley, you have spoken very eloquently, and it has really touched me and allowed me. And I've listened to every single one of all of your points. And I have a few things that I think that would kind of benefit this conversation, because I hear a lot of like what we need to do, but I want to hear more of like what are we planning? You know, what is the thing that we need to do to get to where we need to go? And first, I wanted to start with the whole part of like anger. Students, especially speaking for me from a high school student's perspective, I feel that adults do not understand at this moment as to what our generation is going through, as well as like how we think, how we perceive things. So I think there needs to be some type of way to where we can connect, whether it's implementing more younger teachers into the schools that understand or that are closer in age to students to be able to understand them a bit more. I also wanted to tackle the point on mental health, because I believe that mental health is a very important thing. I actually want to go to school to be a psychologist and work in DeKalb County school systems. I think that counselors themselves are at this moment way too overworked with things that are not involving the students and their mental health as well, with them being counselors and that being their job description. I feel that each school should be able to have some type of, or a team of therapists to be able to tackle mental health as a whole, because it is a very important thing that is not talked about enough, especially in the Black community. As well as your point on understanding where we are from and our lineage and being Black people and our culture. I feel that we do not have enough academic resources that allow us to know and understand where we are from. We don't have enough African American courses that study our history or where we're from. All of our history that we have been told up until this point, because I'm currently a junior, all of the history that I have been taught up until this point has been stuff that really hasn't been about me or where I came from or where I descended from. It's always been about American history. I feel like we do not have enough African American history being taught in schools. And there was another point that I was getting to that I forgot, but maybe I could bring it up later in this conversation. But as of right now, while I had it on my mind, I wanted to tackle that. But yes, that was something that I think that could be implemented.
Well,
Mark,
I want to say,
you said
go
my-
ahead, Dr. Morley. Yes,
I
go.
just wanted
I
to
think you're
Mark,
going
you
to say
said
it.
it mouthful. And once we can get you on track to become that psychologist so you can come back and work in the DeKalb County School District, the contract will be waiting for you. And so we want you to be able to do that. But I mean, and I saw everyone and Dr. Tinsley taking notes. There's going to be a part 2 of this conversation. So we're just starting the conversation and looking at it because it's so prevalent. But we want to make sure, and I think Dr. Tinsley, one of the things is making sure that we have a team of young people such as Mark, who represent the various schools. And Mark, you at one of my schools, Redan High School, and we know that it's a great Blue Thunder. We know all the things that go on there. But I think it would be a great idea to be able to have a collaborative venture with people such as yourself, because you all are the ones that are dealing with it. And once we hear from you all, I also have a question I want to ask. But thank you so much, Mark. And when you want to come back in later, we'll have you to come back in. Dr. Tinsley.
Yes, thank you. And Mark, ditto. We can get the papers drawn up now. We can project how long it's going to take you to get that degree, but we need that energy. So thank you so much for sharing. The question always is asked, what are we doing? So, I think you heard Principal Carter earlier talking about those safety walks in buildings, and principals are, routinely checking their buildings. We have the access points for persons coming in the building so we can monitor the outsiders that are actually coming into our buildings through our security cameras. We are, of course, checking our alarm systems and making sure that we're upgrading all the cameras to make sure that they work, because that's important. It doesn't make any sense for us to have them and they're not operable to help us in the event of an emergency. But also, Mark shared, we have resources in our buildings as well to help to address some of those issues, such as anger issues or other societal barriers that students and staff may have. So we have counselors and social workers and school psychologists that work with each school, and they are there specifically, uniquely trained to help with, making sure that we are supporting students and helping to address issues that they may have. But most importantly, we have a group, and they're represented on this call today, our parent involvement wing of the district. And what's so phenomenal about this group, and they know how I feel about them, they offer trainings for parents, sessions, dialogue sessions, not that we're telling parents what to do, but it's so interactive. And we're all learning at the same time. And I think that's powerful. We have to make sure that the perception of safety is real. We have to make sure that people feel when they walk into our buildings that they're safe. Now, you're going to hear later from Chief Gober, who is with our police department, but we have a See Something, Say Something campaign in which we empower students and members of the community to let us know if there's something that's not quite right, if there has been a fight in the neighborhood, or there has been traffic on social media about something that's possibly going to happen in our schools. We have been able to intervene on so many situations just because of students and parents and community members joining forces with us to help keep our buildings safe. So I have to take a moment to say thank you for that. Dr. Morley, I can't move further without talking a little bit about social media, if I might.
Julie.
Because I believe that social media is something that we really have to make sure that we monitor. Social media hit the scene fast. It became that thing. Everybody had to have a Facebook account or Twitter account or some other social media mechanism to communicate with people. And what we know is there is some research out there that says about 90% of our 13 to 17-year-olds use some type of social media. And then also looking at another data point, about 70% of adults say that they use some type of social media platform regularly. So what that says to us is that there's a lot that's going on out there. People are communicating with one another. I do think it's cutting down on some of the socialization because we're able to type things and send quick messages, and some of the communication skills that we have are possibly, being forgotten because we're not using them quite so often. But what's important about social media that I think we have to always remember is that everything that happens or everything that's posted or everything that's displayed on social media is not the truth. There's some things that are accurate, and social media can be used for very positive reasons. But then we also know that social media can be used negatively as well. One of the things that we see quite a bit of, and I'm going to pause in a minute and ask Chief Gober to share, we see a lot of bullying and threats that occur on social media. And we have to be careful of that because there are some legal implications related to the information that's shared on social media. So Chief Gober, if you would like to come on to the screen and share any information from a public safety perspective regarding social media, I think that would be great.
Well, thank you, Dr. Tinsley, and thank you, Dr. Morley, for having this forum for us to all talk. I think that my colleagues have covered a great deal of what we need to know about safety in schools. They're all experts in their fields. So what I wanted to do is add a little bit from the public safety standpoint and the law enforcement standpoint. Like Dr. Tinsley said, when you type text or put something in a social media platform and you say that you're going to harm someone, and it doesn't matter how you're going to harm them, that's an illegal act at that time. If you say you're going to end somebody's life, that's a terroristic threat, which is a felony in the state of Georgia. If you just say you're going to beat somebody up, slap their head, that's simple assault in the state of Georgia. And you're leaving a record of this, right? So it's easy to be prosecuted. And, you know, when you're dealing with these things inside the schoolhouse, more than likely your school resource officer, your school police officer is going to deal with it. But when you're dealing with this at home and you're sending these messages at home and other places, then DeKalb police or whatever law enforcement jurisdiction where you live is going to deal with this. And I think that parents need to speak to their kids about the implications of writing something out of anger or mad, or even if you think it's a joke and it's funny, they have repercussions. And as we talked about bullying, as we talk about mental health, you don't know the state of mind that the other person that you're talking to is in. So maybe you're joking and, you know, or you think it's funny, but it's actually an act of bullying. And while you're doing this bullying to this person, you know, they may have suicidal thoughts. You don't know. You don't know where they're at with their family. You don't know what kind of services and things that they need. So I think that we need to be very careful about that, and parents need to monitor social media. One thing that we have is we see kids with guns on social media all the time, and they're drinking alcohol, doing drugs on videos, shooting guns, holding guns, posing with guns, and parents have no idea. None. So try to monitor your kids on social media. And I would also say a step further is, we all know, like Dr. Morley opened these conversations with the news. You see the violence that's going on around the nation, and particularly here in DeKalb and around the metro Atlanta area. That's an opportunity to speak to your kids, because guess what? If violence is in the community, and your kids are in the community, they're seeing this violence. It's their friends, their neighbors. They know people that are either inflicting the violence or victims of the violence. And this is an opportunity as a parent, when you hear news stories that are close to you, to ask your child, how do you feel about that? And then that starts the dialogue. How do you feel about that? How do you think they handle that? Do you know that person, right? And then we get into where parents are having discussions with their kids and our students about how this violence is affecting their community and even their mental health. And the last thing I want to say is, we do have a school police department, and we all know they're called school resource officers, SROs, but we really want you to know that we are student resource officers. That S stands for students. We are a resource for the students, and we're a resource for the parents. And you call us with to see something, say something, or if you just think something's wrong, we have a number. Hopefully somebody will put it in the chat, 678-676-1810. That number is manned 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Somebody's going to answer that phone. And when you call, if it's something that's not necessarily we need to handle, then we can get you to the right department to give you the services that you need. We work very closely with our social workers, our counselors, and our law enforcement office partners at the state, local, and federal jurisdictions. So I just want you to know that we are here for you. And it doesn't necessarily mean if you report something to us that there's going to be a law enforcement action, because sometimes we have people that are afraid to report something because they don't want somebody to go to jail or they don't want them to be charged. Not every report ends up in an arrest. We try not to arrest them. A matter of fact, if we can get to them before they do something or make a bad choice, right, then we stop them from committing that crime and doing something. We would much rather stop them on the front end, you know, from doing something to harm themselves or somebody else, to make sure that we keep our school environment and climate safe.
Dr. Tinsley, I want to say something before you come back in, because I want to see if we have a question from the chat, or if one of our students can also weigh in, because I also have a question for them. But Chief Goldberg, you were right on target. I was going to ask you to talk about them posing on social media with guns and drugs and alcohol, those sorts of things like that. And I want to say to our people, our young people and older people, guns don't give you guts. It can take it away from you, as a matter of fact. Being out there and being bold and bodacious and disrespectful does not help you to get anywhere. We're supposed to be here for a lifetime, but sometimes that lifetime is shorter because of the fact that we put ourselves in predicaments that are not in the best interest. How do we make the right decisions? How do we do the things that we need to? How do we turn away and just walk away? And hoping both people will walk away and both will have won and both will be back at school tomorrow, be at home tomorrow, and there won't be a problem. But I think the other thing is recognizing, as Mark said, is the importance of understanding culture. If you understand your legacy and where you came from and how you emanated and looking at yourself, you will see that you are here to arise to the point where you are actually those people that are ahead of everything, intelligent people, intelligent beings, that there's so many things that you have going for you. And it's important. That culture is so important. And I would really like for us to find some ways, if parents have to do it in the community, whatever needs to take place. But then we've got to challenge the system that says you can't talk about where you came from. You can't talk about slavery. You can't talk about all those things. And so Mark hit it on the head again. It's imperative that we help our children and some of our adults, some of our parents. I was in Kroger the other day, a young man working there and as a cashier. And I asked him, he was talking about Biggie Smalls to someone. And I asked him, did he know Heavy D? And so he said, who? Heavy what? Heavy woo? What? And so I said to him, I'm giving you an assignment. You don't know Heavy D, the great Heavy D, you know? And so when I went back there yesterday, I said, okay, you've had a week and a half since I've been here. Did you look up Heavy D to see the great Heavy D and who he was all about? And so he was like, no, I didn't. So everybody else around chimed in. They were like, you can go on your phone. It's understanding that there are some people, some great rappers. Heavy D is gone, but he left a legacy. He left some music, he left some things. Curtis Mayfield, all these, and sometimes they say, oh, that stuff is in the past, but it's the past that brought you to the present that will get you in the future. And if you deny the past, then you can't have it. So when you look at this, they're sampling, what they're sampling for. But the bottom line is, just because you hear it in a song doesn't mean you act it out in real life. And we know that over in Fulton County, and the DA there is actually saying you don't act out. If you hear it in the song, they're going to use it in the song to be able to come after you. So we need to make sure that parents, that you monitor, check your children's room. They don't own a room. Check the phone. Watch some of the videos with them, and have a conversation about the video, and then be able to talk about it. Look at the movies that they're watching. Listen to the songs. You know, I have to listen to some of the raps because I have grandchildren, and when I had children who were growing up, I had to listen so I understand. And then some I would say, no, I don't think that's the best. Oh, that's a great one. And the stuff I do, Fatal Attraction, the TV show, it's all real. Those are real stories. They're not made up. When you can get to the point that you're so angry that you're willing to plot and take someone's life, something is wrong. And mental health is also something that we have to look at. And Mark also talked about that, you know, looking at how the role of mental health. We're fighting, I've been fighting ever since I've been on this board to have the DeKalb County School District to recognize. And thank you, Dr. Tinsley, for the people we're hiring, more counselors, psychologists, Mark. And so we'll have the contract for you and making sure that we have the people in place. Dr. Tinsley, you want to go back and do we want to look at and see if there are any questions in the chat? Any of the students want to weigh in?
Yeah, I think Dr. Morley, I think it's a good idea if we have any of the students that would like to chime in on anything that they've heard thus far. Please go ahead, unmute yourself, tell us who you are, and make your comment. All right, well, it looks like they are a little shy right now. Maybe they'll warm up a little bit. Yeah, I'm looking now. Yes.
May I pose a question to the students? Because
Absolutely.
we do see a lot of bullying and a lot of threats on social media within the communities that come into the school. I would like to know what proactive measures they would like us as adults in the building, as district leaders, to take to assist them in handling this and dealing with this bullying and harassment that is taking place. because we know a lot of times students don't report it because they believe we as adults won't do anything about it. So I would like to know from the students, what is it that we can do to assist?
Any student want to jump in?
I
Let's-
will.
Okay, tell us who you are.
Hi, my name is Myra Frello, and I go to Redan High School as well as Mark.
Redan is in the house, right?
Yeah. So basically, to help with the bullying, what you guys can do or can assist with, make it, I would suggest to make the punishment like just make the punishment for us where a student could feel safe for them to actually confide in one of the counselors or teachers or anybody else such as that as a matter. So it's saying like many students feel as if like when you confide in one of the teachers or counselors or anybody or tell anybody about the school about bullying, that they feel like the bully gets off easy. They might get a phone call home or go get sent home for 2 to 3 days and then they're back bullying. They need a more stern structure for their consequences. Like they need a more stern consequences for the bully, because other than that, the person won't even feel safe to even tell nobody, because it's just like, what's the point if they're going to come back and do it again? And they might be worse than the beginning or the first time, because but I do say stricter consequences is something that you can assist us with.
Thank you,
Awesome.
Myra.
Myra, yeah, thank you for that.
I have a question I'd like to ask, and then I'm going to understand that one of my fellow board members is in the room also. And then we have one of our real famous people from Redan, the great Blue Thunder, who's always out there helping the children. So I want to recognize them in a minute. But my question to the youth and the children that are on here, the students that are on here, young adults, I should say, because they're at Redan High School, is to ask the question, what is it that you see that's going on in your homes? What is it in your homes or at school that you see is the greatest threat to causing violence? What is it that keeps you all from being safe? What is it in your home or in the school? It doesn't have to be specifically your home, but it could be something that you see in homes that's going on or in the schools that is one of the greatest conduits to violence, and you believe that will keep you all from being safe.
If I could jump in again, first, one thing that I feel that needs to be addressed more is one thing that I see a lot at home is a lot of students taking care of their siblings and not a lot of parents actually being parents, and that just comes from the unfortunate being the unfortunate circumstances that a lot of people live in. One thing that I do think that we have to address and that we have to know is that as a community, as Black people in general, that we have been disenfranchised and ostracized for a very long time, especially not just Black people, all people of color. And once we realize and understand that a lot of people, especially in DeKalb County School District, at least people that I know, are below the poverty line and do not have the resources to be able to afford a lot of the programs and stuff that help people, that are supposed to help people with different issues like this. But a lot of the time that I see are that students are taking care of their siblings and parents are not being able to take care of their kids. And I feel like there's something that needs to be done there, because a child cannot raise another child.
Mm.
And that there's an important lesson that students and parents that they have to have, because if we continue to let students raise each other and their siblings, and it's going to be a bunch of chaos and miscommunication because a lot of people my age who were not fortunate enough to have a family or a parent that teaches them the correct and proper way to handle issues, they do not have the proper communication skills or the proper mental skills to be able to handle conflict and address it in a proper way. So they're going to result to whatever they saw or whatever they had to do growing up, because a lot of students and a lot of people I know and personal friends that I know have had to survive for a very long time. And I feel like a lot of the reasons why things are not being changed or they haven't changed recently is because people have gotten so used to the fact of things being said but nothing being implemented. So first and foremost, I wanted to thank you all for inviting me here today, because I'm very glad that this topic is being discussed, because it's something that I've wanted to talk about for a very long time.
Wow. Mark, thank you for being here. Thank you for speaking up. And hopefully you can encourage some of your fellow students to also speak up. We need to hear from you all. We need to hear your voice. You all do have something to say. It is about you all, and it's about the future. And you all are the ones who are shaping that future right now. And that's something that we can look at. And that one of the things that's going to happen, I've asked Ms. Coward and Dr. Tinsley to have, well, we're going to have some workshops in between now and the second part two. We're hoping to do part two of this conversation in November. And then after things get back to some level of normality where we can actually be in larger rooms, because I like to be able to see people touch and all of that, that we can do that. But Mark, I would really like to, Dr. Tinsley, if you don't mind, maybe inviting him to be a part of some of those smaller groups and presentations that are going to take place when we come back together in November, that we can have a totally different view of what we're doing, how we're going to do it, and have some help. And that parents would reach out, students would reach out and say, here's what we need. And Mark, that's the whole thing. We want to act upon them. We don't want to just talk about it. Talking is nothing. We can all talk out the side of our necks, but what's doing with our hands and our feet and making things happen. So thank you so much. Dr. Tinsley?
Hello.
Yes, was there a student that wanted to add something?
I want to say something. My name is Maya, and I'm from Clarkson High School. I want to say
Clarkson.
Yeah, I want to say about one thing that I feel safe at home is having a good connection with my parents. I have my parents are very loving and very supportive. And they're like always keeping a close eye on what I'm doing or my other siblings doing. And they're instead of punishment, they're always teach me or guide me to how to have a positive connection with others in the community. And that's why I never been in any trouble. It's been 12 years that I'm in school, and I'm officially a senior now. And I would say I've been in here 3 years that I'm in here, and I've been in different countries, different schools, and I have never been in trouble because I learned from my parents how to stay away from things that going to hurt me, going to hurt my community, and the most important, going to hurt my parents. So I learned from them. So I think having good communication and having a good connection with parents are the most important for everybody, and especially for teenagers. And
Wow.
and students should know, like, a school is a place for educate, or not for bullying or bring gun at school or do stuff that they shouldn't do. Because I feel everybody is cool, not just principals, not just teachers, everybody. Because we are adults, and we should know that we're responsible for keeping school and home safe, and we should have this conversation, and we should have this conversation with our parents as well. Like, and having connection with parents and teachers is the best thing ever. So.
Awesome. Samaya, thank you so much. I think, and one of the things, a great point you talked about is we do have to have punishment, but we also have to, balance it out with praise. How much praise is being given, and sometimes every student might not get to A, They may be on their way, but any type of change, any type of growth is worthy of being noticed. And that really, really makes a difference. And you're right, that relationship with parents, how do you have that relationship? And as you said, I don't want to do anything to hurt my parents because I know my parents are not going to want to do anything to help us. So we have to begin to look at that's that respect, that's revering your parents. At the same time, parents revering their children. And it's hard, as Mark said, it's hard, having to take care of your siblings and do those sorts of things. But at the same time, parents being able to look at what can I do in order to be able to give some praise and be able to prop my children up and not just give them everything material. Sometimes it's just a hug. It's a kind word. It's a hand on the shoulder. It's those things like that that makes a world of difference and say that you are valuable, and I'm glad that you're here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Morley, for having me. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Morley, there's one hand that's up and I don't have a name. It just says iPhone 3. So if iPhone 3 can unmute and make your comment.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, all the doctors. And I'm so happy seeing all the doctors in the house. And thank you so much, Miss Latonia, to give me this opportunity to know there is such a way to know about all our environment, our community, and students and parents. I have no idea about this. And until I met her right around the summertime, but I didn't get a chance to join because every time the email comes to junk, and finally I have to dig in after I talked to her last week. And I missed a lot, but I still there's no
You're breaking up.
Breaking up on us.
You were when you first started, you were
it's
fine.
not too late. There's always time.
There you
I
go.
thank you so much for the point. I've been sitting with you. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, stay right there. Don't move. Stay right
Okay.
there.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, I got the neighborhood that has a very bad signal. So first to begin with, and I've been writing some of the notes that you guys were saying, and I have about 2-3 points to give if I'm not taking too long for you guys' time. And I know this is important. It's a big project that you guys working on. Kids are a big project. Life is a big project. So the first thing I want to say is like role the role parents rolling in school, like what kind of role parents playing in the school. We are the other hand of the school. Like, you are right hand, we're left hand. We got to be hand to hand to make a sound. The students and the success, everything comes out. The sound is the two side of working together. You can't clap with one hand. So definitely we do need to involve in the school a lot. And me, myself, as a parent, I have 3 kids that are 18, 19, and 14. Thank God they are college. The 2 of them, they're 18 and 19 at our college right now. And I have this is the kids that I gave birth, but I have another 3 grown kids that I raised. My sister died and I adopted them and I raised them. They're 20 plus, all of them. And I'm around always with the kids around. I love kids, and my friend is kids and old people. So being with kids is blessing. Like the end of the day, you don't have anything to talk about. You don't have anything to think about. Even though the kids give you a little, headache and you got to scream to make them something, you got to play with too much with them. It's a blessing thing. So I have a youth group to run. So I'm around the kids. So that's the only way you can attach yourself to the kids, being friend with them. So for me to roll with my school, my kids to school, I'm there open to close. Like when I say open to close, from day 1 to the school end. In the morning, I go there. I say good morning until my work time, and I help something. I go work, come back, pick them up. Before I pick them up, I walk in. How is it? How's the kids doing? And stuff like that. Because that's the only way I want the teachers, the school know me, and I want to know them. And that way we know what the kids doing. You communicate. Because I don't like one-sided story. I don't want to hear my kids how is the school? What did you do? Parents involved in a little bit. It doesn't have to be every day. We have to involve in. And just to mention, I know Mr. Da Costa, and he is, I know him well. We had both of us had a kids at the Dale Academy. He might know if he see me, he might not know by name.
Do
So
you
we
mind- do you
have a
mind
track
giving
and
your
field
name?
together with
Do you
his
mind? giving your
daughter
name
and
so
my kids. Mr. Da Costa, I'm sorry.
I said, do you mind giving your name so that we can help you to be involved
Oh,
with?
okay, my name, this is a funny thing. My name is Tigist Ibrahim, but the funny thing is at the school, they call me with my kids' last name. You know, as I'm being Muslim, as I'm being my country, my culture, we don't call no husband name or, you know, other names. We call dad's name. So nobody knows me by me. They say, Miss Yusuf, Miss Yasser. My name, my son is Yasir and their last name is Yusuf. So everybody knows me, Miss Yusuf. So, but my name is Tigist Ibrahim. So far, you know, Miss Lithonia knows me personally. Like we met at her office. So I came in and saw her, and that's why I know all this. So just to go back to, I don't want to take much time, because if you let me talk, I'll talk all day about
Yeah,
kids.
we only have
Kids
a
are,
few minutes, just a couple of minutes because we're winding down, but I'm so
yes,
glad
yes.
that you're
So
on
yeah,
here.
that's why I
Yes.
want to wrap it up. So just to give a head up, just to give a little things like us, the problem is not involving a lack of language, lack of knowledge. We have a language barrier and people not knowing what they're supposed to do, like a parents. I'm talking about like me and my people, like especially like foreigners, every foreigners. We don't know how to communicate to the school. We don't know how to, so you guys have a source for us, but we need someone to connect it. We need some ladder to go from, you know, connecting those missing part. So that will fix it for rolling us, for the kids and the parents, what they do, what the kids do starts at home. Like some of you mentioned it, I'm really happy hearing that. Most of the problem starts at home. As one of the doctor, or I don't know which one of y'all say that, what they learn is what they see at home. The word they say, what they hear at home. What they do is what they see at home. So I teach my kids, like, do not bring the trash from outside. Means like when you stay at school, if you see something, leave it there.
That's right.
Like if it's bad act, that's trash to me. I don't want you to take anything from here that affect outside. I don't want you to bring anything from the outside affect inside. So I want you to stay normal. So I am friend with my kids, very friendly. To tell you this, even my kids, they say a lot about me, like, why you act like us, why you have all this social media, why you do this. Like, I have you name it social media, it comes when they download, I download. I say my kids, I put them down.
Well, we thank you for calling
Thank
in.
you.
Especially the two girls, the oldest ones.
Yeah, you've given us some real.
Yeah, so what I told them,
we appreciate you.
yeah, so what I told
calling
my
in.
kids, for me, yeah, so I don't want, yeah, so I want to know, like, if you guys have another meeting like this, so we can work together with you guys. This is about our kids.
That's
It's
right.
all bullying, all that. I've been bullying my life back home where I grow up, but it's not serious as here. These
Well,
days are different.
we're gonna make sure that you have the information, Ms. Coward, before we end tonight, that you have the number.
Yes.
And I really want you to make sure that she has your name and contact information, because we want to make sure that we carry this on. And you're right, it's that relationship, and it's you all making the decisions and recognizing. And we just thank you. I mean, this has just been robust, and just hearing parents and hearing students talk about what's going on, because it's not just about us in the district. It's all of us coming together. How can we work together, make this community? And we do have programs that are taking place over in Clarkson. That's also my area and my school, and making sure that we have interpreters, and making sure, and we're looking at other robust things with the Clarkson Community Center, all those things like that we're working together, partnerships, hand in hand, like hands in a glove. And so, Dr. Tinsley, I tell you, this has been just really exciting. What would you say?
I would agree, Dr. Morley, and I just want to thank everyone for tuning in. I know we've gone a little over time, but I think the conversation has been rich. We have heard from several persons with different viewpoints, but what I can hear clearly, the message is this is an important topic and one that we have to continue to discuss. So I just think it's been awesome, and I've taken a lot of notes and have some to-dos from this. And I want to thank my team for being here and helping to orchestrate it, helping to plan it, and participating as a part of the panel. And this is just the first of many.
Well, I want to most certainly thank the students, and I understand that Miss Sandy Burkett is in the room, and Miss Burkett, Miss P, as we call her, does so much over at the Great Rita Ann. And for all the educators, our teachers, our social workers, psychologists, our bus drivers, our food service workers, anyone, everybody in this district is so important, because we could not do this without everybody. The secretaries, the administrative assistants. So it's not just about those people who hold titles and trying to make the big money. It's about everybody, no matter how much money, no matter where they work. And if we're not for the students, we're not for the parents. And some, you know, if it's a surrogate parent, whomever, the fact is, if you feed children long enough, they begin to look like you. But the bottom line is, when we think about people like, you know, our students, Mark, and we think about Samaya, and we think about Maya, we think about all the children that have been on here, the youth that are here, who have a lot to say. They mean a lot, and they have a lot to say. We want to hear. And as I said, this is only part one. Part two, we're looking at in November, and Dr. Tinsley will be able to facilitate that. I know that I heard that Mr. DaCosta was on before. I don't think he's still here. And but we thank him for dropping in, because I'm only one board member. I only have one voice. And I want to appeal to you all. If you don't do anything else, make sure you vote. We can't change rules and regulations, but you have one vote. I have my one vote on the board, the DeKalb County School Board. And if you all know me, I have utilized it for the 10 years I've been on this board. And I stand for children with children, stand for parents and with parents, stand for the employees and with them. I stand for the community, the DeKalb County community, because none of us can do it without all of us coming together. We need everybody. We need the voice. We need the thoughts. We need the input of everybody that's here. We want to make sure that we have a district that shows our children are learning, but they're successful. And people like Mark who want to come back and be that psychologist. And we do have a lot of employees in the DeKalb County School District who are graduates of the district. And we want to make sure that if there are any questions, anybody has a need, Ms. Coward, if you all are still there, to be able to let people know how that they can contact the Family and Community Engagement Office and be able to ask for whatever they need, knowing that it is a joint effort. As the parent just said, we cannot do it by ourselves. And remembering that it is all of us working together. As Samaya said, it's how we actually treat each other, loving parents and parents loving children, that to be safe, it starts at home. The school is a microcosm of the macrocosm, but everything y'all see in the street, as the parents said, don't bring it to this house. Don't bring that verbiage, don't bring the mess, and you won't bring the stress. Don't bring the guns, leave them out there. You don't need guns to be able to get things done. And Mark, you talked about having some of the younger people. There are some people out here, and Dr. Tinsley is looking at bringing them in to be able to address you all. And so that you can learn that you can use your mouth, your mind, and your body, your spirit, to be able to convey what you need. It takes a sender and a receiver to communicate. You're responsible for not only how you send, but how you receive, because sometimes you can misconstrue what's being said. But this has been a great night. I want to say thank you to everyone who participated. There will be a round two, a part two. And Ms. Coward, to someone be able to come in and be able to say to the community, to parents, students, and as Chief Gober said, I want to thank him, Dr. Towns, Dr. Moore Sanders. If you see something, and you know the late Congressman John Lewis said it, if you see something, it's not right, it's not fair, stand up, say something, and do something. That's a mantra that I follow, and I believe it. Don't worry about what someone's going to say. Don't worry about they're going to say that you're tipping someone off. That's how a lot of people's lives are said. Is there someone who can carry us out and be able to share the number for the Family and Community Engagement?
We have Dr. Morley. We have dropped it in the chat. The 678-676-0384 number for our family engagement team. We've also dropped in the chat the social work department's number, as well as public safety, and whatever other information that they need. But, you know, I am excited that we were able to do this. Dr. Tinsley, I think we're onto something with these students.
I think so.
in their brilliance, and for them to share as openly as they did. I'm really excited about that. But I'm also really excited about our parent who, in our opinion, started out really mousy, did not have much to say, but I'm glad she was on here tonight because we have what? A parent coalition that we are forming and teaching our parents how to advocate in their real voices and as authentically as they can for their students. So thank you, parents, for being here.
And I want to give one last thank you, then I'm gonna let Dr. Tinsley close this out. Ms. Coward and Ann, the whole team, you all have just been awesome. Thank you all for putting this together. We've been doing this a long time. We usually have a courageous conversation for District 7 in the spring and the fall, but because of the violence, because of the safety, we decided to do one early, and we'll do another one that'll follow to this in November. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for attending wherever you are, and just know that it takes all of us. And just know it starts with you, but there are three fingers pointing back at me. So I have to be a part of that. You is a collective of all of us together. And I just really appreciate you all. And I love what I do. I am an educator, and I understand youth. I understand, Mark, and all of you all, what you all are talking about, and I understand what the parents are talking about, the educators and everyone on here. Dr. Tinsley, will you close us out, please?
Absolutely. Again, thank you everybody for taking some time out of your busy schedules to participate in this conversation with us. I want to thank everybody that's a member of the DeKalb County School District team. And I have to say a special thanks to the members of the board, because we know that without members of the board, we have our own Dr. Morley here, Mr. DaCosta that did join us earlier, and others that I'm sure are with us in spirit. If it was not for the support of the board and the resources provided, we would not be able to do the wonderful work that we're doing. So with that being said, everybody, please be safe. Remember this conversation and be on the lookout, because we will have part 2. Students, I'm coming for you. I have your names. I've got something special planned. Take care, everybody. Have a good night.